There are some moments your dog faces every day that most people never fully see. Right before they enter a room, they stop. Not always long enough to realize. Sometimes just a second, sometimes less. But that moment is not hesitation. It's a clear decision. Because in that short stillness, your dog is doing something most people don't realize at all. They are assessing the space, reading you, and deciding whether this moment includes them. And once you see it, you start noticing it everywhere. The way they slow at the doorway, the way one paw lingers midair, the way their body holds, not moving forward, but not pulling back either. What looks like nothing is actually one of the most information-rich moments in their behavior. Because your dog is not simply moving through your home. They are responding to it, interpreting it, and quietly deciding, again and re-again, how to exist within it. To most people, this moment rarely registers. If it is noticed at all, it is often dismissed as hesitation or distraction or something without meaning. But the truth is more subtle than that. Because this pause is not empty. It is not accidental. It is not a break in behavior. It is behavior, compressed into a form so brief that it is easy to overlook. Spaces are not neutral. For humans, rooms are stable. A kitchen is a kitchen. A bedroom is a bedroom. The function remains consistent, even when the details inside change. But for a dog, space is not defined by structure alone. It is defined by experience, what they lived in. Every room carries traces of what has happened there before, not just in scent, though that plays a role, but in feeling, in pattern, in expectation. A living room may be a place of rest in the evening, but a place of activity during the day. A doorway that once meant welcome may, at another time, carry the memory of restriction. So when a dog approaches a threshold, they are not simply moving from one physical location to another. They are crossing from one set of associations into another. The doorway becomes more than an opening. It becomes a boundary between states, between what has been and what might happen next. And in that brief pause, they take it in. The invisible scan. What stillness looks like is, in fact, a form of movement. Not outward, but inward. A collecting of information that does not rely on the same cues humans use. Dogs do not need to search for open signals. They can read subtleties. The way air moves through a space. The faint shift of sound. The presence or absence of activity. The posture of a person across the room. Even the emotional tone that lingers in a place after something has already passed. This is not analysis in the human sense. It is not deliberate or slow. It happens almost instantly, but it is still a process. A silent question unfolds in that moment, not in words, but in feeling. Is this space open to me right now? And sometimes, the answer is not immediately clear. Not because the environment is confusing, but because it is dynamic. It changes from moment to moment, and the dog adjusts with it. So they pause, not out of fear, but out of awareness. Not because they are unsure of the room, but because they are fully engaged with it. Screening you without being told. There is another layer to this moment, one that often goes unnoticed because it does not involve movement at all. Once the dog stops at a doorway, they are not only reading the space, they are reading you within it. Your posture, your stillness, your attention, these are not neutral signals. Even when you believe you are doing nothing, your presence carries information. Dogs are exceptionally attuned to these microsignals, often in ways that operate below conscious awareness. They learn, over time, that entry into a space is not always unconditional. Sometimes they are welcomed in with warmth. Sometimes they are ignored. Sometimes they are corrected or redirected. None of these moments need to be dramatic to leave an impression. Repetition alone is enough. And so, instead of assuming, they wait. Not for a command, necessarily, but for alignment. For a subtle confirmation that this moment, this version of the room, includes them. That pause becomes a form of communication, quiet, respectful, and easily missed. The weight of small moments. No single experience fully defines this behavior. It is not created in one day, or even in one pattern. It is built slowly, through accumulation. A time when they entered too quickly and were asked to step back. A time when they walked in and were met with stillness instead of engagement. A time when they hesitated and something in the environment shifted in response. Individually, these moments feel insignificant. They pass quickly, often without notice. But for a dog, they do not disappear. They layer. Over time, these layers form a kind of internal map, not of the house itself, but of how the house behaves, of when it feels open and when it feels closed, of when movement is welcomed and when it is better to wait. So when your dog pauses at a doorway, they are not reacting to a single situation. They are responding to a history of subtle experiences that have taught them something about timing. They remember, not as a story, but as a sensation. Stillness as control. To a human observer, action often looks like confidence. Moving forward, entering without hesitation, taking space. These are the behaviors we associate with certainty. But for dogs, control often appears in a quieter form. It appears as restraint. That pause at the doorway is not a failure to act. It is the ability to choose not to act immediately, to hold position until something feels right, to delay movement without losing intention. This is not uncertainty. It is regulation. A dog that can pause like this is not disconnected from the environment. They are deeply connected to it. They are managing their own behavior in response to it, without needing intervention. And because this control is quiet, it is often misunderstood. It can look like hesitation. It can look like confusion. But in many cases, it is neither. It is awareness, expressed through stillness. The subtle decision. If you watch closely enough, you will begin to notice something else. The pause does not last forever. At some point, often without any clear external signal, the dog moves forward. They step into the room, and the moment of entry feels different than it would have if they had walked in without stopping. It is more deliberate, more resolved, as if something invisible has shifted into place. That shift is the decision, not a dramatic one, not a conscious one in the way humans experience decisions, but a real one nonetheless. A transition from observation to action, and it happens quietly, so quietly that it is rarely acknowledged. A different way of seeing. What once looked like a delay begins to feel like meaning. What once seemed insignificant begins to reveal a pattern. That brief pause at the doorway was never empty. It was never random. It was a moment where multiple layers, environment, memory, awareness, and connection, came together in a single point of stillness. And once you begin to see it, it becomes difficult to unsee. Your dog is not simply moving from room to room. They are constantly interpreting the world around them, adjusting to it, responding to it in ways that are both subtle and precise. The doorway, then, is not just a passage. It is a place where something invisible happens. A place where your dog decides, quietly and without announcement, how to enter your world.